Hello and welcome to the OriginMD channel. It's been a while and I'll be quite busy next week, so this video is going to be quite short. I was not really lucky with the wildcards that I have opened in my first 13 packs, so I was able to only build a proper deck with the vampire tokens. The main goal of this deck is to play out our cheap creatures as soon as possible, then to follow them up by the lifelink tokens. Then it is to buff everything that we have on the board and to continue swinging with our lifelink creatures. And finally to remove any potential threats, with Duress being the other option to get rid of our opponent's sweepers. And this is how we generally win games. Now let's discuss each card in much more detail. Our deck is going to be somewhere between aggressive and mid-range version, and that is why we run 24 lands. We have quite a few creature spells, because apart from 20 creatures we have around 7 spells that generate tokens. And we have mainly white affinity in our deck. We have the Skymarcher Aspirants, and we do have quite a few ways to have a lot of permanents on the field, which is why activating the City's Blessing and having the Skymarcher Aspirant gain flying is not impossible. We have 2 Duress in our deck. If the meta changes and we will see more control, then definitely we should run some more of it in the main deck. This is a card that is basically useless against creature decks, but against decks that have sweepers and removal, it can be especially important to cast Duress before we commit and put as many tokens as possible on the field. And the same goes for our buffing versions. At the very least, Duress is usually good to be played on turns 1, 2 and 3 when our opponent has a lot of cards, because this can also give us some information about what is going on. It's a very tricky card to use correctly, and so is the deck. It's definitely not a deck I would recommend to very beginners. Adanto Vanguard is another good option for us to become aggressive early. It becomes a 3/1 when it attacks, and for 4 life it can gain indestructible, so it could be quite useful if we want to get more aggressive. Baffling End is something that is good against and not other aggro and mid-range decks. This is where we usually use it. If the creature an opponent controls has a converted mana cost of 3 or less, then we can use it. And this also helps with the City's Blessing and Ascend. Martyr of Dusk, when it dies, creates a 1/1 vampire creature token with lifelink, so this is very useful for suiciding in our opponents and for trading and still getting something in return, which is really in line with what the deck wants. Pride of Conquerors is a card that grants the creatures +1/+1 until the end of turn, and if we have the City's Blessing, those creatures get +2/+2 until the end of turn instead. This can also be quite useful. In the previous Rivals of Ixalan patch I've used 2 or 3 of those, and they have proven to be quite useful, but of course you don't want to have too many of them. Dusk Legion Zealot is a card that I have used the common wild cards to craft. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. And drawing additional cards to accelerate our production, to fix our mana problems, and to get the pieces that we need to actually win the game is quite useful. I think this is one of the key cards in the deck. And Legion Lieutenant is a key card as well, since our vampires can get +1/+1. A word of caution though is that once you have the mana for it, it's usually not the correct idea to play it on turn 2 or 3. You usually play it when you already have a board presence, or you want your opponent to waste his removal on other creatures. This is one of your key components in the deck. We have 3 Forerunners of the Legion, because it allows us to search for a vampire card that we need, and usually those are the Legion Lieutenants, and to put it on top. And when other vampires enter the battlefield under our control, a creature we choose gets +1/+1 until the end of turn. So this is quite useful for us, since all the tokens that we have are able to buff our other creatures. Overall, it's quite a decent card. It's working quite well. Queen's Commission just generates 2 white vampire creature tokens with lifelink, so that is quite useful for us, since we want to go as wide as possible. Radiant Destiny I only have 3 of, because I only opened 1 rare wildcard, and we had 1 from the starting collection as well. And the Radiant Destiny was in the starter decks, so here you go, here are the 3 of them. I would have 4 as soon as possible if you are willing to commit to this build. Sadistic Skymarcher is something that also came with the deck. It's good, but it's not super amazing. It usually eats some sort of removal or something like that. It's not too bad though. A 2/2 flyer for lifelink for 3 mana if you're able to show another vampire, it's decent. But it's a placeholder. There are better cards to include in the deck. Cast Out. When it enters the battlefield, you can exile target non-land permanent until Cast Out leaves the field, and this is quite useful for us since it also has flash, but in the few games that I've had so far in Arena in the recent patch, Cast Out I even sometimes play in the main phase. Ixalan's Binding is the cast out just without being able to cast it on our opponent's turn, and also the permanents with the same name can't be cast from our opponent. It's quite a decent card, but tapping out completely for 4 mana is probably not the best spot that you want to be in, and that rounds up our removal spells. If you really want, you can also use Chupacabras, which are quite useful. Sanctum Seeker is a card that I'm using as well. It's a vampire, and when our vamps attack our opponent loses 1 life and we gain 1 in exchange. So that can be useful and can win you games if you are able to have a board presence already. But of course, this is a card that can be replaced. Call to the Feast is a card that allows you to generate 3 vampire tokens with lifelink, and this also is in line with our plan. Champion of Dusk is a card that I haven't used much before, but it has proven to be quite decent if you are able to get to this point in time when you are already attacking and you have a few vampires in play, and you cast the Champion of Dusk. Then you are able to draw plenty of cards and hopefully overwhelm your opponent with everything you have. In terms of the mana base, we have 1 Desert of the True that comes into the battlefield tapped, but you can cycle it away for an additional card draw, 9 Plains, 2 Shefet Dunes, which allows you to use it for white mana, but more importantly, if you pay 4 mana, including 2 white, tap it and sacrifice a desert, you can use it to have the creatures get +1/+1, although it can only be cast only when you could cast it as a sorcery. It's still quite useful to get in this additional damage once you do have the board presence. Desert of the Glorified is another cycling land. We have 9 Swamps and 2 Forsaken Sanctuaries. Now that we've discussed the deck, let's play. Okay, our opponent is going first. We've got 3 lands and something that we want to play on turn 3. Well, let's keep this hand and hopefully we'll get some more of our 1 or 2 drops before this. Red and white from the opponent. So this might mean that he might be on an aggressive plan. Let's see if that is indeed the case. Since he has red mana open, he might have some removal spells, which is why casting out the Legion's Lieutenant on our turn 2 is not such an obvious one. It's much better to go ahead and go for tokens if possible. Okay, Glory-bound Initiate. I think we are fine with taking the damage from our opponent. Either 3 or 4 lifelink, but this does seem to be the Boros aggro. Alright. Does he exert? Not yet. Just hits us for 3. This is fine. This is Skymarcher Aspirant, so yeah, definitely some Boros aggro here. In this case, let's go for the Queen's Commission. Kill the Vampire tokens. What we would like to do in our situation right here is to take the game to the middle stage and to the late game, because this way I think we have a higher chance of winning. But of course it all depends. We'll see. Okay. Attacks with everything and probably going to exert. No, just like this. Alright. Just like that is fine. We're going to take 3. So, we've got 4 mana. A Forerunner might not be bad. Let's go ahead and use Duress to see if our opponent has a removal spell. He has the Rallying Roar and the Ixalan's Binding. Okay, let's get rid of the Ixalan's Binding, because we don't want it to be cast on our Legion's Lieutenant, for sure. And let's go for the Forerunner of the Legion. Let's take the action. And I think that another Legion's Lieutenant would be nice. We are not going to be attacking. The only thing we want is to simply defend. Alright. This mountain was revealed to us with the Duress. Let's see if our opponent is going to commit. This is the little dance of the Crop Crusher. Alright, he's going to exert. That's even better. No, of course we're not going to block. We're still fine with taking damage, since we have lifelink on our Vampire token. And we've got 2 Legion's Lieutenants coming up. So, let's do exactly that. He can untap his Crop Crusher with the Rallying Roar, but that's going to be fine. Our Forerunner is going to pump our Vampire token quite considerably. And I want Ascend to be triggered and to have another token pump right here, because I certainly want to gain some life. Now, if he's going to untap his Uncrop Crusher, do I mind if he trades with the Forerunner of the Legion? I think I actually don't. I actually don't really care. Yep, this was to be expected. But I don't mind this trade. Alright, that's interesting. Let's get rid of the Uncrop Crusher. Alright, just one card left for our opponent. And it's going to be the Gustwalker. However, it looks like we have more or less got this game in the bag. Let's go ahead and cast the Baffling End on the Aspirant. Then we can attack with everything. Just one card left for our opponent. We have gained back the life we've lost. Good game. Alright, that's not a bad card, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, we are going first this time. We've got 4 lands, which is a little bit on the higher side. Got some removal and the Forerunner as well. But okay, let's keep this hand and see if we can draw into something good and relevant, since we do have quite a few token generating spells in our deck and other cards that can help us get there. So let's start off with the Swamp. See what our opponent is up to. Red. Okay, so red is interesting because this would be, it would be a little bit too much to go for the Legion Lieutenant. We really don't want to cast him on our turn 2 anyway. So let's go for the Adanto Vanguard. We only have it as a one-off. Red and green from our opponent and nothing else. Interesting. Alright, in this case, let's go for white. Let's go ahead and attack our opponent. Damage him for 3, and let's go for the Forerunner of the Legion. Alright. Cycles away Desert of the Feven. Meanwhile, we are going to search for a card. It's too early to go for the Champion of the Dusk. We could build up the field more with the Martyr of Dusk, but I feel like having the second Legion's Lieutenant and just going turn 2 Lieutenants is going to be the most powerful play that we can get. Of course, if our opponent casts something that requires the Baffling End, this might be the play. So let's see. We're off to a decent start. Alright. Okay. So I think it's a good idea to go ahead and get the triggers here. Let's go ahead and attack. This is some pretty significant damage. So our opponent is in a heap of trouble, I guess. Unless he has the Sweltering Suns that is going to clear the field. But even then, our Adanto Vanguard would have probably finished the game for us. Anyway, for them, I mean. Okay. That's one more victory. We got an Angler Drake. Not sure I'm too excited about it. Let's go for the next. Okay, we are going first. That's not too bad. We've got 2 colors and we've got 3 lands, so I think this hand is a keep quite easily. Turn 1 we go for Forsaken Sanctuary, then turn 2 Martyr or the Dusk Legion Zealot, depending on whatever we want to apply more pressure or we want more card advantage. Let's see. And ideally I'd want to use Duress on our opponent before casting the Legion's Lieutenant. Alright. This might be a mirror match. We'll find out soon enough. We've only got 1 black source available, so we won't be able to go for Dusk Legion Zealot and Duress. So we'll find out soon enough. Alright, is this a precon deck? Wow. Poor guy. Let's go ahead and attack. I think I want to go for the Dusk Legion Zealot and the Skymarcher Aspirant. And we even got ourselves the Radiant Destiny. Well, I'm guessing our opponent is not that lucky. Okay. Alright. Marvin Flame. Let's see if he's going to attack. Yes, he is. I think I'm fine with taking 2 damage. Nothing too special here. So yeah, I think I'm going for the Radiant Destiny. Let's have the Vampires come online. Duress to see what our opponent has in hand. Vanquisher's Banner and Baffling End. Which one is more problematic for us? He doesn't have any more lands in his hand, which means that the Vanquisher's Banner is going to take some time to come online. I think that Baffling End is probably what we want to get rid of. Yeah, I think attacking with everything is fine. Since if he wants to trade Marvin Frame, that would have been completely okay. And we want to be aggressive here. Since we have the Legion's Lieutenant, our creatures are going to be much more buff. And the Vanquisher's Banner is going to take time to come online. Okay. All right. Gideon's Defeat. Well, this is a good sideboard card, but I don't know. Okay, so we've got 2 mana, we are going first, and we've got our aggressive and our draw vampires, so I think this is a keep. I would have preferred 1 more mana in our hand to have the extra security, because we do have Call to the Feast that costs 4, and the Destiny that costs 1 more. Okay. Let's go ahead and play out the Martyr of Dusk. Our opponent is on green-white, so this might be a token cat deck. Alright. This is indeed the case. Let's go ahead and attack and build out our presence on the field with the Dusk Legion Zealot. Alright. Let's see if our opponent is going to commit to attacking. Alright. Seems not. Just going to attack and untap one of the lands. Oh, he's going to untap itself, which is completely fine in my opinion. So I think we have a pretty straightforward plan. We're going to attack, and we certainly don't mind the trade. We're going to play out the Queen's Commission to create more tokens, and then we can buff them with the Radiant Destiny or the Legion's Lieutenant on our next turn. If we get 1 more white mana, this would be perfect, because this way we could go for the Legion's Lieutenant and do something with the Pride of the Conquerors. Now the question here is, do we defend? I think we're fine with taking this damage. Alright, not getting 1 more mana is going to hurt us a bit. But let's go ahead and play out the Legion's Lieutenant. We are not going to be attacking this turn, and we'll just go for the defense. Our opponent is already on 5 mana while we are still stuck, and this looks like it's a good game. Okay, let's keep this hand, since we've got 2 colors that we need. Start off with the Forsaken Sanctuary. Then turn 2, I think we want to go for the Zealot. Alright. A Queen's Commission. Okay, looks like this is something that we can do. We don't have a vampire, so we cannot cast the Sadistic Skymarcher. Alright. A vampire card. Does the Queen's Commission count as a vampire card? Oh, we have the Sanctum Seeker. Okay, that works. Completely forgot about it, and it's pointless to attack since he is just going to block with the sentry. So might as well let him do his thing. Let's see if he has any removal for the Skymarcher. Edifice of Authority. Target creature can't attack this turn, brick counter. Until your next turn, target creature can't attack or block and its activated abilities can't be activated. 3 or more brick counters. Well, let's see, what are our options? We could go for the Queen's Commission, or we could go for Baffling End, Skymarcher Aspirant. But I think it's better to develop the board. Let's go ahead and attack. I think we can also play the Desert of the Glorified, which was the hidden block, as a land. And go for the Queen's Commission and try to get the City's Blessing, so our Skymarcher Aspirant will have flying. We've got 8 permanents on the field, this is going to be the 9s. And we can even go for the Baffling End for the last one. But of course it's better to wait. Let's see. Okay. Our compulsory rest is going to control our Sadistic Skymarcher. We've got the Dunes. So, an island. I don't think our opponent has a counter spell for 2. He doesn't have a pirate in place, so I think the best way forward is to play out the Sanctum Seeker. And if he has Censer, we have 1 mana that we can use. So let's go ahead and attack with the rest of our creatures. He's going to prevent one of them from attacking using the Edifice of Authority, which is fine, since that only leaves him with 1 mana up. So our Skymarcher Aspirant is likely going to see some play. Alright, cycles once. Our Sanctum Seeker is going to trigger, and we get a send. So, the way our opponent wins is if he has... Okay, Ixalan's Binding just says that he doesn't have or doesn't want to cast the Settle the Wreckage. So in our case, cast out is the best play that we have main phase. So we're just going to get rid of the Ixalan's Binding right here. This way we get back our Sanctum Seeker, and this way we can trigger it 3 times and deal 2 additional damage, since one of our creatures is going to be blocked. And that overall is not too bad. So, the moment of truth. Does he keep up his mana? He doesn't. He has the Glyph Keeper. And this pretty much means that our opponent has lost. Let's go for the Baffling End. Let it resolve. Let him block the Skymarcher Aspirant. Then we're going for the Queen's Commission. And I think this is game. Unless he has River's Rebuke, that would have been able to return all the permanents to our hand. I'd like to thank you for watching and see you in the next video.